Good morning. Bill Hilton Jr. here. You know, for the past 18 years, the last week in April, first week in May, I've been off in West Virginia at the New River Birding and Nature Festival. This year, 2020, of course, is a little different with that pesky little coronavirus coming into play. So I'm not in West Virginia, which is my second favorite state. I'm home in South Carolina at Hilton Pond Center for Piedmont Natural History, where my wife Susan and I have lived for the last 39 years. So Keith and Jeff and Rachel and Paul thought it'd be a good idea to kind of continue the tradition of birding by butt at the festival, and maybe I could do a little bird banding on this first morning of the festival. You wouldn't believe that coronavirus has a lockdown here in South Carolina because there are all kinds of cars zipping past. We hope we'll be able to overcome that noise as we go through the morning. To start off with, right here by the edge of the road, at the top of the driveway at Hilton Pond, there's a bluebird box. And that bluebird box, well, somehow or another, doesn't always get occupied by bluebirds. So let's go take a look. Down inside, 7 baby chickadees, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. First of all, chickadees aren't very big, and secondly, 7 is a lot. But there were 7 eggs. Those 7 eggs have all hatched, and within a few days, I'm going to go ahead and band those chickadee babies. It's kind of cool. I banded some Carolina wrens a few weeks ago here, and yesterday when I was running mist nets, I caught the female and all 3 chicks fledged from the nest. A good sign. Obviously, I didn't disturb them, and they're doing quite well. So I've never tried to do a one take before, but I'll have to see what I can do as we walk down the trails here at Hilton Pond. In front of us, first you see our garden shed, and soon coming into view will be the old farmhouse. It was built in 1918. We've done a lot of renovations on it through the years. And it's been a great place to live and also to do my research with birds. So I spend a lot of time walking the trails here. We got 11 acres. And on those 11 acres, I've got about 2.5 miles of trails, and you just never know what you might find when you're walking around. Just this morning, I found on the trail this. It's the primary feather from a turkey vulture. And you notice how it's got a very long quill. And it's tapered toward the end. And that tapering allows for aerodynamics and also very precise control by the vulture when it's soaring through the air. It's a big feather, about 18 inches long. As I've seen the vultures flying over the last couple of weeks, I've noticed that they're in molt. Synchronously, they're losing the same feather on either wing. Pretty good way to stay balanced when you're flying. So on those 2.5 miles of trails, I've got about 36 different net lanes. If you've ever seen bird banding in operation, you know that a lot of banders use mist nets to catch birds. And this is what I call the location A chestnut net right here. It's open and catching leaves this morning. No birds in it so far. So there's the house ahead again. It's a new roof we got last October. Pretty proud of that. New gutters. And here's one of the main feeding stations we're coming to now. You can see a big tube feeder. There are traps on the ground. Little water garden beyond that. Some more traps. It's a great place to watch birds right outside the old kitchen window up here. It's also a great place to band birds. So on Easter Monday, the day after Easter this year, a couple of weeks ago, something big happened at Hilton Pond, and that was a windstorm. And if you keep track of this week at Hilton Pond and our Facebook page, you can see a very, very large tree came down in the windstorm. This is a 100-year-old oak, southern red oak, Quercus falcata, and it's about 100 feet tall and about 100 years old. And it came down with quite a thud, woke us up in the night. And it's made a very, very large hole in the sky. A lot less shade, a lot less food for birds, a lot less nesting sites, less shelter. It's going to make a big difference in my banding, especially since it landed on 3 of my nets and took them out completely. So another part of my banding setup, more traps. A little waterfall garden here. Very attractive to warblers in the spring sometimes. Another net lane. No birds. Still a little early for spring migration. The big push probably won't happen for another week, but you know, I've never been here for the first week in May for the last 18 years because I've always been in West Virginia. Another net lane. 2 weeks ago, this one caught a pileated woodpecker. Pretty exciting, only the second one I've ever banded here at Hilton Pond. And in 2015, another big tree went down. This was a white oak. I have not had much luck with big trees at Hilton Pond. And this one's been on the ground, impossible to move, just a massive tree. And then beyond it, of course, is Hilton Pond itself. About a 1 acre impoundment, put in 1955 by the Soil Conservation Service. And it was put in as a retardant for erosion and to provide water for cattle. In drought years, it almost dries up completely because it's fed only by rainfall and runoff. The spring that fed it has long ago dried up. You'll see a lot of bird boxes around. Some of those get occupied various years. Another trail that goes off toward the other side of the pond. One more net lane. And one of my ubiquitous brush piles. You can never have too many brush piles that provide shelter for especially things like sparrows in the wintertime. And one last net to look at. Oh, on the far end seems to be a bird. Indeed it is. You might recognize that call. You can also hear the bill snap for this bird. Weep, weep. I'm going to put the camera down on the ground and take the bird out of the net. Here we have it, a yellowish belly, rusty tail, big clacking bill, sort of a crest on it. That's all you need to know. We've just misnetted a great crested flycatcher, which just happens to be Susan's sparkbird and her favorite still. She'll be really excited to know that on this day we've caught a great crested flycatcher. And you can't see it, but right on the top of my iPhone there's a little drop of great crested flycatcher poop. Nice shot, flycatcher. So we'll want to take this bird in for banding. So we're going back toward the house again. And we'll go up onto the porch. And I've got a little one-man setup here so we can do bird banding live. First I'm going to clamp my iPhone into a tripod. And then I'm going to take the flycatcher and put it in a temporary holding situation because we have another bird we're going to band first. Okay, thanks for waiting. I guess you got a good view of the pond while I was gone. Now it's time to get down to work. Put on my working hat here, my very coveted New River Birding and Nature Festival orange cap, glowing in the sunlight. Take off my jacket and expose my Operation Ruby Throat t-shirt. I do have more than one of these. And in a little holding box right beside us, I have a bird that I captured just before I started taping the video. And it's been hidden in a dark box in one of my lingerie bags. As I like to say, if it's good enough for silk undies, it's good enough for my birds. So I'm going to carefully take this bird out of the bag. Ouch. Ouch. Guess why I'm saying ouch? Because what I've got here is a very large billed adult male rose-breasted grosbeak. I caught this bird in one of those traps out beside the water garden this morning. It's been hanging around for several days. I've had 3 adult males and a female yesterday, and they certainly do like sunflower seeds. Interestingly, I banded one earlier in the week and it disappeared. I banded another one, it disappeared. And these birds are all going further north. To my knowledge, there are no nesting records in York County where Hilton Pond Center is. They're southern Appalachian and western North Carolina and beyond. They're right on the edge though, so I wouldn't be surprised to someday get a nesting record for this area. So that really does have a grosbeak, gross meaning large, and it can make a number on a sunflower seed, and I was saying ouch because it can also bite pretty hard on your fingers, so I have to be very careful. Normally when I show a bird, I grab it by the legs and hold it erect, but when I do that with a grosbeak, it typically starts biting my fingers. But you can see as an adult male, all black on the back, 2 huge white wing patches, a big white rump, and of course the rose breast. One thing that's not typically visible when you see a rose-breasted grosbeak at your feeder is the underwing, and very bright pink, rose-colored in the male. Female has a kind of a yellowish color there instead. And the female looks like a giant sparrow on steroids. She's twice the size of a white-throated sparrow and actually looks a little like a white-throated sparrow. People often mistake the female for some other bird. But I want to go ahead and band this guy. This would be an adult male again. Young males look like females. And I've got a band handy. This bird takes a rather stout size 2 band because they can open up smaller, softer bands. So a 2 is very stout. I've got banding pliers here with a split pin on them right there. I'm going to put the band on the split pin. When I open the pliers, it spreads the pin so that it's open. And then I take the pliers and put the band in one of the holes, like so, and take the bird's leg, actually the tibiotarsus, a combination of foot and lower leg. Put the band around the leg, crimp it down. Oops, I didn't get it on quite right, so let's start over again. Kind of hard doing this and filming at the same time. Try another shot. Here we go. Here's the leg. Pliers, band, close down. Very carefully make sure the band is closed all the way. And now the bird is officially banded with number 1152 11161. So that number will be sent off to the bird banding lab in Laurel, Maryland, part of the federal government. And if anybody ever finds a rose-breasted grosbeak with that number on it, they can go online and report to the banding lab that number, and the banding lab will send them a certificate of appreciation suitable for framing, and they'll send me a printout saying, oh, that bird was recaptured or found dead or injured or what have you at such and such a location. They'll send me the email for the person that found it, and we can exchange information. And that's how we know about migration. If the bird comes back next year and I recapture it, we learn about site fidelity. If we get it several years in a row, it tells us about longevity. And so bird banding has lots of real values. When I band those chickadees in the box by the driveway, I'll learn some things about whether young survive and for how long. I don't know the exact age of this bird, but he had to have hatched out at least 2 years ago. So we're going to call him an after second year bird. So I'm going to write that in my data sheet. I'm going to check him for fat. This place right here in your body is a little depression right there between your clavicles. It's called the frecula in a bird, and that's where the wishbone forms a little depression, and that's where birds deposit a lot of fat when they're in migration. So I'm going to blow on that rosy breast. Probably can't demonstrate that very well, but he's got a pretty good fat deposit there, probably thanks to my sunflower seeds. So I'm going to call that a fat class 2. It's not bulging out. It's kind of level with the frecula itself. And I think that probably means that he's just storing up fat, getting ready to leave, go further north from here. I doubt he's going to spend the summer, but you know, that's one reason we do bird banding and bird watching, is trying to find new records for nesting birds and whether or not they're going to stay someplace where they didn't used to. So he's banded. I want to measure the tail. I just slide a 15 centimeter rule between the central tail feathers. It doesn't hurt the bird. 76 millimeters, that is. And I also want to get the wing chord measurement. And the wing chord is from the tip of the longest primary feather to the bend in the wing, and that's actually the bird's wrist right there. See, the primary feathers are attached to the bird's hand. A lot of people don't realize that birds have hands, but they do. So that's the wrist right there, and then this is the forearm here, and then back closer to the body is the upper arm. So birds have a wing that's just like your arm. Hand, forearm with ulnar radius, and then the upper arm or upper wing with the humerus in it. So the primaries are attached to the fingers and the thumb. The alveolar feathers, the ones right at the crook, are attached to the thumb. These are attached to the fingers. The secondaries are attached to the forearm, and then the tertiaries, if there are any, close to the body, are attached to the humerus. So I want to measure the wing chord from the bend of the wing, the wrist, to the tip of the longest primary, and I'm getting 107. Now, in rose-breasted grosbeaks, that's not necessarily an important measurement, but in some birds, like say white-throated sparrows, females have a wing that's 67 millimeters or less, and males have a wing that's usually 74 or more. And that's important because white-throated sparrows are sexually monomorphic. Both males and females look alike. So if you can get a wing chord measurement and it's under 67, then you know it's a female. And if it's above 74, you know it's a male. So that's quite useful in sexing sexually monomorphic birds. In breeding season, you can look for things like brood patches, where the female loses all of her belly feathers and provides better transfer of heat rather than insulation to the eggs. Or you can look for something called cloacal protuberance in the male, where the cloacal opening is actually surrounded by temporarily deposited sperm that allow for quicker copulation. I'm actually going to check this guy's cloacal protuberance just to see. And he doesn't have one. So he's probably not going to develop that until he gets onto the breeding grounds up further north. So there he is, rose-breasted grosbeak. Nice to have such a colorful specimen that everybody can identify. And I'm going to let go. And we hope it flies above the net when I release it. There it went. Off to the west instead of to the north. Okay, so we have one other bird. You remember we got out of the net a few minutes ago. So it's been hanging in a lingerie bag. Let me go get it real quickly. And I've been hearing this bird out in the treetops saying that weep, weep, weep. But I have not caught a great crested flycatcher yet this year. I'm certain that in 39 years I've probably had less than 100 of these birds that I've banded. So here it is, making that weeping call, and you'll probably be hearing that bill clacking again. You know, flycatchers, there you go. Flycatchers make their living going out and catching flying insects, and they snap that bill when they catch the insect, and they often do that also as a, I guess, as a defense mechanism. And this is a particularly noisy bird, and you know, you don't want to get emotionally involved, but I want to hold this bird as little as possible and get the band on the leg and get it loose. You kind of have to deaden yourself to the sounds of birds and not think about being emotional. So, very large bill on a great crested flycatcher. A little hook on the tip probably helps grab that insect even better. And then of course flycatchers, like most birds, swallow their prey whole. So it's a matter of getting the bird, crushing it. They eat a lot of things like bees, dragonflies, what have you. I had some nest in a wood duck box on Hilton Pond a few years ago, and they lowered my dragonfly population considerably. So a great crested flycatcher. Certainly the largest of our flycatchers in eastern North America. Notice the rusty tail coloring, and of course the yellow breast with a gray chest. Okay, so she's biting too, but it doesn't hurt nearly as bad as the rose-breasted grosbeak did. She takes a slightly smaller band. See 1B right here. So I want to open the band up. Open it is. Put it in the pliers again. Get it on the bird's leg. Make sure it's closed all the way. And just a few weeks ago, I actually banded my 70,000th bird at Hilton Pond since 1982. That was pretty much a startling plateau to reach. That bird was a male rufous-sided towhee, now called eastern towhee, and pretty exciting. 70,000 birds. Hilton Pond Center is the most active year-round bird banding station in the Carolinas, one of the most active in the southeast. So the work we're doing here is in some ways unique. Okay, so bird banded. I want to do that tail measurement again. So the grosbeak had a 76 millimeter tail. The flycatcher has a 92.5 millimeter tail. and I want to do the wing. So wing is 106. And I want to see if I can age and sex this bird. Great crested flycatchers are sexually monomorphic. Males and females look alike, and unfortunately, in many of the flycatchers, males and females both get brood patches. This bird doesn't particularly have a brood patch yet. It may get one as the season progresses if it's a male, and it would certainly get one if it's a female. But I'm not sure about wing measurement on great crested flycatcher. I'll have to look it up in the bird bander's Bible called by Pyle, and it would tell me if there's a wing chord differential between males and females. But I don't know that off the top of my head, again, because I haven't banded very many of these. So I'm going to put down sex as unknown for now. And age, you can sometimes look at a bird's wing, look at the primary coverts, you can sometimes look at the shape of the tail feathers, and a variety of other characters to tell the age of the bird. But again, I'll have to look it up in Pyle, but I'm thinking this is simply going to have to be called an after-hatch year bird that was hatched at least last year. It could be much older than that. So there's a real science to trying to age any kind of bird, and I just don't know all the details in this, and we'll have to look it up. Check for fat, although I don't think there'll be any this time. Yeah, 0 fat in the furcula. As mentioned, I've been hearing great crested flycatchers, so I think this is a resident bird that'll be with us the rest of the summer and will be nesting in some sort of cavity more than likely. Great crested flycatchers often gather a snake skin and put it in their nest. Some people suspect that is a way to scare off predators. But it was interesting when they nested in the wood duck box down by the pond, there was a snake skin hanging out of the entry hole. Okay, so I've got what I need from this bird. You'll notice I haven't weighed these birds. Weighing is something I usually do, but it takes a lot more time. And for the sake of this video, I'm just going to let these birds go. So a great crested flycatcher it is. There she goes. Flew the same direction as the Grosbeak did. Don't know what that means, but there they go. So that's pretty much it. Coming up on the 35-minute mark, which was about what the folks from New River Birding and Nature Festival asked for. I'm really, really sorry, as is Susan, that we're not going to be seeing you folks that we have come to know as family this year. But I hope that birding by bud at Hilton Pond has been an acceptable substitute for you instead of being in the wilds of West Virginia. New River Gorge is a great place. I'm certain they're going to do everything they can to have another festival next year. We'll start over on 18 in a row and maybe be going for another 20 years or so after that. So from here at Hilton Pond Center for Piedmont Natural History, check out my website if you get a chance, www.hiltonpond.org. There's always the Operation Ruby Throat website, www.rubythroat.org, and then go online and look for the festival too. So happy April, be safe, stay healthy. I'm about as socially isolated as I can be right now and missing all of you in the mountains of West Virginia. Bye-bye.